What would you do for $4,000 in one night? I used to think I had an easy answer. Then my friend Darren called me up, said he needed a photographer for a party, and named a number that made me choke on my own spit. I said yes before he finished the sentence. By midnight, I understood exactly why he needed someone he trusted enough to keep quiet. And by the time the sun came up, $4,000 felt like the cheapest thing in the world compared to what I actually paid for it. Back in the early 90s, Darren threw a party almost every month, and I shot most of them. Nothing serious, just candid photos for his guest list, the kind people like seeing themselves in. I knew most of his regulars by name. That night, I didn't recognize a single face in the room, except one, a guest standing dead center, not talking to anybody, just watching the room like he was studying it. He was maybe 4 feet tall, skin drawn tight over a skeletal frame, except for a stomach that hung round and swollen. His head was too big for his body, round like a ball, topped with a tuft of dark red hair and a receding hairline. No nose, no ears. His eyes were huge, but somehow they looked small against that head. His mouth stretched from one side of his face to the other, wide enough that I could see straight down his throat when it opened. He was completely naked. Nobody had bothered to explain why. Darren grabbed my arm, grinning like he'd found a long-lost brother. "Charlie, I want you to meet my best friend in the world. This is Joshua." Joshua's eyes locked onto mine. I stuck my hand out, because that's what you do, even when every nerve in your body is screaming at you not to. His fingers shot up fast, long and nailless, reaching for my hand with a hunger that had no business being there. Darren yanked my arm back before Joshua could close the gap. "Don't let him grab you, man," he whispered. "Go get your camera. Meet me in the kitchen." In the kitchen? Darren laid it out. Last year in Thailand, he'd met a Russian guy at a party who offered him money to host someone for a few nights and take photographs. That someone was Joshua. Darren didn't know what Joshua was. He didn't care either. $2,000, he said, "just for tonight." I said yes. Of course I said yes. For an hour I did my job, photographing Joshua while he stood in one spot, and the guests threw him nervous smiles. One woman in a purple dress pulled me aside during a break, wine glass shaking in her hand. "I don't like him," she whispered. "He scares me. I don't know why I agreed to come tonight." Then, quieter, Darren paid me $200. "That's why I'm here. Same as you, right?" I hadn't realized the guests were getting paid too. Later, Darren introduced me to Alexei, the Russian from Thailand. Tall, tan, built like a surfer, with an accent thick enough to cut concrete, and a handshake that felt more like a warning. "I want a few more photographs," Alexei said. "A little different. The amount we offered is enough, yes." It wasn't really a question. "Tell me, Charlie, what is the worst thing you have ever seen?" I laughed it off. He laughed harder, then walked me and Darren upstairs to a newly tiled bathroom. A tripod stood facing one wall. 2 silent men leaned against it, watching me set up my camera. On a side table sat a stack of towels and a few glasses of milk. "Another $2,000, Darren told me, just to shoot whatever happened next." A knock at the door. A young woman walked in, a little drunk, laughing about getting paid extra for a photo shoot. Alexei told her she'd be working with Joshua tonight. Ew, the freak from downstairs? Whatever. $100 is $100. What do you want me to do? Shake his hand, Alexei said. She held her hand out, laughing. Joshua's face lit up like he'd never seen a human hand before in his life. He wrapped his long fingers around hers, gentle at first. Then his grip closed like a vice. Hey, that's too tight, she said, still smiling, still not understanding. It didn't loosen. She screamed. I froze behind my camera. Keep taking photos, Darren hissed, his hand crushing my shoulder. We have to help her. Keep taking photos, or they kill you. Both of us. Alexei's men poured milk over her head as she thrashed, laughing like this was a party trick. Alexei held Joshua back just long enough for him to open that impossible mouth and say the only word I ever heard him speak. Hungry. Alexei let go. I took one last photo of the second her face still looked human. Then Joshua's jaw closed around her head in a single motion, and the sound that followed was louder than her scream had been. It was over before I understood it had started. My camera kept clicking. My finger kept moving. I don't remember choosing to do that. I just remember the sound of chewing, blood spreading across white tile, and Darren's hand still locked on my shoulder, the only thing keeping me on my feet. Alexei thanked me like I just shot a wedding, said if the photos turned out well, they'd call on me for more work. Darren had built them a darkroom months earlier. I didn't ask why. I developed every frame with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. Somewhere in those hours alone with the chemicals and the red light, I made 2 extra copies. Poof! Evidence! Something. I didn't know what I'd do with them, but I wasn't leaving that house without a way to prove what I'd seen. A week later, $15,000 sat in my bank account. I didn't celebrate. I bought myself a Burger King, the biggest one on the menu, and ate it alone by the window, staring at nothing while people walked by outside like the world hadn't just cracked open in front of me. A month later, my phone rang. I still have those 2 photographs. I still haven't decided what to do with them. If stories like this one keep you up at night in the best way, hit subscribe, because there's a lot more where this came from. And if you've got a true story of your own that still gives you chills, drop it in the comments. I read every single one.